Baby.
Man, oh man. Listen, is that song about Stevie Wonder or is it about India.Arie?
Come on, because she has touched our soul.
Oh, oof. Welcome to Black Dandelion. Oh my goodness.
It's on and popping today, and we
Yes.
need it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We were just talking, we do a little check-in before each episode, and man, this one is right on time. This one is right on time. So thank y'all very much for being with us.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. Hey, Liz. Hey, John. Hey, Charmin. Thanks for joining us. For those who don't know, my name is Yodit, music aficionado, culture fanatic, India lover, lover of all things blackity, black. Thanks to my mama, Cassandra Johnson. Woo, it's been a few weeks, and music has been my happy place right now.
Come on. I'm right there with you. What is up, everyone? Co-host of Black Dandelion. My name is Will Jones III. I am a Black creative audiophile, and again in this episode, I have to invoke my mother, Marion Jones. I'm her oldest son, and she, my parents put their work in, and actually my Aunt Tola and Uncle John put their work in to make sure that I was well educated when it came to music coming up. But my mama played this album for me I don't think she knew. I mean, she couldn't have known, right, how deeply it would hit, how deeply it would land. So I have to invoke her and just, thanks, Mom, for showing us the music again.
Listen, honey, I'm fangirl number one of the Marion Jones club. Wow, she is powerful. And if you didn't catch the last recording, we have this after set with Mom from last time that was just so powerful. And Will, a lot has happened since that episode.
Yeah. This is going to be, and we just need to name this right now. This episode, it is a celebration and a tribute of this incredible album. And because of the wholeness of what that means, and the wholeness of what we're experiencing in this moment, it might get heavy at some times, but that is what this podcast is all about, right? Is us creating space for us.
And for collective care, right? I mean, Black and brown bodies have been under attack. I mean, for the entirety of this nation's founding, but in particular, our relatives in the Asian American and Asian Pacific Islander and Sikh communities.
That's right.
We lost too many tragically. I can barely fix my lips as a mother of a nearly 13-year-old to imagine the horror that Adam Toledo's parents are going through right now. Will, I have felt all the things, despair, anger, re-traumatization. I've feared the desensitization that comes when you are constantly inundated with the falling of Black and brown bodies, and grappled with that. And yesterday I just unplugged and really took some time, which for me is fleeting. But to be in what my friend Michelle, who's with us, calls collective community care. And I'll drop before we break. Yesterday, she did this great 15, 20-minute piece, but she really distinguished between, self-care, as it's often mainstreamed, like a mani-pedi,
right.
getaway. And one of the things that really hit is she was like, true self-care is not done individually. It honors the collective and that we need each other. And so I'm grateful to be in this space with you and with the folks who have joined. And I'm even imagining, the hundreds and thousands that'll watch this over the years that will know um, how much we love them and how um, what a homage Black Dandelion is to us, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it has been another couple difficult weeks, and personally, I have been in the midst of a lot of, like my wife and I are in the process of selling our home. We sold our home. It happened this past week. So we are
Bro,
not.
you did some grown shit the last couple
Look,
weeks.
listen. The amount of money that's in my savings account right now is a joke. This is a game. This is not real life. And in promptly 45 days, we will be without a house. So there's a lot of activity going on. But all of that has kind of, I haven't been able to like fully or not necessarily like able to, but I have not allowed myself to be caught up in what's been happening the same way that I was this time last year. Just like the emotional and mental space, right? I could just like feel it, even just like looking at it for like 3 seconds and then up here. And just knowing like now is not the time for me. And that is kind of like one of the almost like a liberatory expression to say, you know what, I'm not going to be bound down by this trauma again and again and again right now. Still acknowledge the hurt and the pain that it's causing, but not get fully caught up into it. And the way that I've kind of been able to do that, like you said, is like through music, right? Coming back to it as that happy place. I've listened to this album too many times in the past couple of weeks. This one, Voyage to India. Michelle had mentioned Voyage to India in the chat right now, and oh my gosh, right? That one is also an incredible, incredible album. But that is, I think, what is part of like why this album is so revolutionary for me is because of the way it is grounding.
Yeah.
Like almost, it's kind of strange, it just that love, and I think we'll unpack some of this in a moment, but just there's so much in there to remind us of like who we really are,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And that has been so helpful. So if it's okay, I'm gonna do our kind of like ode to Black Dandelions that we like to use to kick off this podcast, this webcast, and then we're gonna get into it. Does that sound good, yo?
Yes. And you
Man.
reminded me that I wrote this piece yesterday. And
Oh,
yeah, I want to hear your writing. And then sometime before we wrap up, I want to share something with you I wrote.
oh man, absolutely. Yeah, let me know when it feels right that you wanna, I
I
want
will.
you to
I
go.
will.
Yeah, yeah, in the flow, please. Okay. So for those of you who are, joining us for the first or 100th time, even though this is our fourth episode, um, this is for the black seeds and saplings, stranded in arid wastelands of whiteness, battered by sandstorms, snacked on by locusts, yet still stretching towards the sun. This is for the native plants they've labeled weeds, who've been poisoned with pesticide, pox, and plague, culled and clipped to the point of erasure, yet still absorb toxins from the soil around them, healing damage they didn't do in the first place. This is for the black dandelions, the resilient remediators who crack and break through the facades of this false world, whose roots run deep, tapping into the wellspring of Black wisdom, strength, and love that replenish and restore amid oppressive heat, who shine brilliantly, gloriously, defiant, made in the image of their creator, sunspots in manufactured landscapes of uniform green, whose genius become the seeds of the revolution for justice, sprouting, growing, and blooming into the future we all long to see.
I just want us to breathe that in for a moment. Because, Will, it's really a love letter that you wrote to us. Tapping into the wellspring of Black wisdom, strength, and love that replenish and restore amid oppressive heat. Mm. Twice over the last couple weeks, in various spaces, I have either led a libation ceremony or invited folks to just speak the names of their ancestors. And at the tail end of March, I celebrated, I keep saying celebrated, it's like a weird Freudian slip, but
Mhm.
the passing of a dear friend who we lost to COVID, and also the anniversary. My mom would die just a year after this album came out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I just want to invite and evoke the spirit of our ancestors, our new ancestors, our older ancestors, our living ancestors into this space. And India does that, right? That's why we started with Wonderful. Like she multiple songs, right? Evokes, you know, I even heard her today. She evoked Ma Rainey. And of
Yeah.
course, right? And of course, many of us saw Viola Davis play Ma Rainey, in Ma Rainey's Blues. And I was like, wow. India, who dropped this album 20 years ago. This
20
is the
years ago.
20-year anniversary. And she is famous, right, for her songs of female empowerment and dismissing societal standards of beauty. This is her debut album. And I was reading, she was really timid and like vulnerable about dropping this. And she talks to her mother every time she produces an album. And her mother like loves her through this, right? Like just do this. And she's a trendsetter at this point. Remember, we're coming out of like 90s Bad Boy, Chronic, Dre, like Diddy, right? We're coming out of that into the new millennia when this album drops. And she, like I was contrasting like Little Kim, her hardcore album and what that meant for me in my late teens and early 20s in the 90s. It's sort of like a place to channel, womanism and all this sexual energy. And India comes back with this love album that totally disrupts. I mean, she is reclaiming our brown skin.
Mm.
She is singing to brothers. I swear the soundtrack, I've been singing to Black men my whole life. She's born in Denver, right? Her parents get divorced when she's 13 and she moves to ATL with her mother and her siblings.
Mm.
And she learns to play the guitar. She goes on to learn, dude, this is you, saxophone, baritone clarinet, French horn, and the trumpet.
Oh, wow. No, she's on a whole different level than me. But we knew that already. We knew that
Listen,
already.
goes to the Savannah College of Arts and Design and studies jewelry design. Listen, and today I was like, I got to pull out I'm like purple for royalty because
Yes.
she is our royalty.
Mm.
But then I had to come creative because the sister is bad.
Oh my God.
And she later turns her attention to music. So jewelry is her first love. And I feel like you see that. Like like India is not just music, she's the embodiment of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's every good thing to me. And she is one of the early architects of Black girl magic.
Mm. And
Tell me Why you go ahead?
Well, that's it, right? I mean, like that's why. That's why. Like when we pick music to talk about on this podcast or this cast, it is because it's revolutionary to us, right? And that Black Girl Magic was revolutionary for me. I this album came out when I was 10, 11 years old, right? So at the very beginning of trying to like figure out a sense of identity, right, and preteeniness, and I didn't grow up around a lot of other Black people, right? That's kind of the context for this cast, and so this album, you know, became almost like a scaffolding for what I could imagine myself to be, even as a Black man, as a Black boy, right? Because, like you said, so much of so much of who she's singing to in here is love to other Black men or to, her other family members and her relations. And so the people that she was encouraging them to be was who I was like, oh, that's part of the blueprint, right? That's what it should look like. Which has led me to, I think, being a lot like I am unapologetically a feminist. I'm growing in what every day in like my practice of that and what it means. But that and like my perception of what masculinity is or what men need to be is very shaped by women, right, and by Black women particularly, and so the way that she kind of was able to mold this other whole human version of us, when like you said, like so much of what was being produced was around a more material mainstream imagery, often sexualizing both us as men and women, right? And this is much more whole, and that is part of why it is revolutionary to me.
Yeah, it's I mean, I want to just stay with that for a minute. In the comments, someone was like, she channels sexual energy and brown skin, and it hits everything. It hits different than everything at that time. And like I was, so you were 10, I was India's age, right? Um, and and yeah, so much of growing up a Black girl is um at least how we're socialized is to not entice the gaze or the affect of men, right? So
Mhm.
like I remember the summer between turning 11 and 12, right? Where my body is changing and now I have to behave a certain way. Mom says you don't sit on men's lap and you don't what have you. And you begin quiet, in these subtle ways to shrink and also to lose sight of like authentically your sexual energy, right? Because it means you're bad or fast or
Mhm.
have you. So for me, little Kim is like this burst of this energy we've been holding inside, but it's still in the context of the male gaze, right? It's
Mhm.
still in the context of like defining ourselves within this masculine construct,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh, and we can be hypersexualized too. India invites me into the back of my heart, into a love letter I feel like I've been singing to Black men my entire adulthood, right? That like, you're so dreamy, beautiful, chocolate loving, wonderful to me. And I wish that you would be and let me be with you who I see you to be,
Mhm.
right? Um, and and men struggling, as you articulated, with these hyper masculine definitions of what that means, and really unable to tap, often, not all, right, but
Right.
in my I'm speaking of my experience, really struggling to tap that vulnerable, open, like really open emotional space that I want to be in, and frankly need to be in with you in order to show up fully, right? Otherwise, you're like, it's these other versions of ourselves. And so when the way in which she offers that love letter, I mean, I can think of many, what, Betty Wright has her own way of doing it. We could go some Tina Marie, honey, or sang you off the, but India has this modern, this 2000s, message for our brothers that just is so loving and so endearing and so vulnerable in a way that I want to be, right, at that time in my life, and have really been challenged to be. That's what's revolutionary
Mm.
is, like, can I tell you how deeply I love your brown skin? How deeply, and like, not amorous love only or sexual love only, but like, I love you, Black man, in the kinship that was, predestined for us, right?
Mm. I mean, that track in particular, Brown Skin, because like for what you're talking about to me is happening across a lot of tracks, but Ready for Love, I think speaks to it in a very
Mm.
different way.
Come on, play a
But
little bit, please.
look, okay, wait, let me stick with Brown Skin for one moment. Let me stick with
Okay,
Brown Skin
okay,
for just a
okay.
moment, right? Because I think there is still this other, like what you're saying, like there's an element of the revolutionary there in naming the love for our melanin. What's interesting to me about it is when I listen to the song, I can hear that love going both ways. Like I could hear a man singing that to a woman. I could hear a man singing that to another man, a woman singing it to another woman, non-binary people singing it to each other. Although, India is kind of like at this point, kind of tapped into a little bit of a binary and whatnot, heteronormativity. But all that to say, it's a there's the video I think speaks to it in another way too, because there's a lot, like she's in public, and so there's all these black and brown people moving up and down the street, and she's singing it like in the midst of kind of all of us in a way. So it is both a personal love, but it's also a love to our like to our peoples, right?
Yes,
Not just one that black people could sing to other black people, but across melanated relationships. And
absolutely.
even in interracial relationship, like I feel
Yes,
like there's always that little bit of uncomfortability the first time that you're sitting in the car with a partner and you're like, oh, like this song is about, black brown love. But, like my white wife could sing that song in her head about me,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
And about our children, right? And so
yeah.
all of that, I think is like so beautiful and so powerful. And then I do just want to name again, like you were saying, even though we have a history of love songs to each other and to our community, I mean, R&B is a whole genre, about love and affection and intimacy. Rarely do we speak about it, I think, in the context of our skin, right? And what it really means to like love somebody's external appearance, including their skin. We talk about curves and eyes and lips all the time, but we don't talk so much about what it is to love each other's skin. Um, and I think that that's just like such an incredibly powerful, um, you know, again, revolutionary kind of aspect that we can say to each other, like, hey, I love the skin that you're in. That is, it's awesome. It's beautiful. It's incredible. Um,
Before we move on, something just came to my mind.
Come on.
Is I'm just right now three anthems to brothers that I'm thinking about. This one, and then Angie Stone's um,
Michelle's
Black
violin.
Brother, yeah, and then Soldier from Beyonce or from Destiny's Child, right? And can I just say, because I don't disagree with you that this song could be sung either way, I long for Michelle. I'm longing. Um, I think when she lifts up some of, and we've touched on this before, some of the crooners of back in the day, I long for, and I'm thinking about like D'Angelo and
Mm,
Anthony Hamilton and a
mm,
few, but like I want that in music for women, right? I want that um homage. And just in this moment, I'm thinking about also what India, there's pain and pleasure here, right? She's also really longing for in Ready to Love, right? For um yeah, for that tenderness. So I was just thinking,
oh
I'm gonna say it a little more flippant. We always asking y'all to love on us, damn it. Where's the
yeah. So, interestingly enough, and I'm gonna play some Ready to Love right now because I think it's a very specific, what you're talking about, and particularly for Black women, I think is a very specific and unique experience in the United States because of what our society has done around like stereotyping and expectations. Um, and just right now, interestingly enough, uh, younger artist Lucky Day, y'all may have heard of him. He kind of came out with an album I think last year that picked up some attention. Released an album this year, 2021, that is an homage to women. And so every track I think is either you know prominently sung by a woman or features another female or features a female artist. It's not the same by any means, right? But um, check that one out for sure. Um, and yeah,
I think an upcoming episode needs to be love songs to us.
hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Uncle John is too.
Uncle John could probably help us write the playlist for that.
Absolutely. Come on, play us some music.
Yeah, this is so. This is Ready to Love.
I'd love to.
All
I would love to.
right, heard.
All right.
Listed. So there's another minute and a half to that song. Um, but, you know, I don't even know if I could listen to the whole thing right now because I was like, okay, this is going to take me too deep.
It's deep. It's deep. I felt my eyes welling up, but I also felt my 20-year later self being like, over are the days of, waiting, begging a man to be ready for love. Like I'm done with that.
And that's
and I feel deep inside like this is an invitation like to be open to, I could see it even transcending just the amorous relationship. Like I'm ready for love on the earth, right? I'm ready for love in our communities. I'm ready for, you know, I'm ready for the war that's been waged against us to end, you know.
Yeah. I feel that entirely, I think that there's that almost to that humanity piece that you were speaking to. And it's interesting because I feel like this line is both universal but also unique again to Black women in like the line, I just need you to acknowledge I am here. Like what you were saying, yes, we need to like see the humanity in each other. And the other day I was just like keep the conversation between some folks and they were talking about how at this point in their lives, these are two Black women in their late 20s, early 30s. And they're like, yo, at this point, I'm done waiting for all kinds of stuff. Like I'm done waiting for somebody else to come along and like give me this, because at this point in my life I've been taught that as a Black woman I have to get it for myself. And even in like my loving relationships, that I have to get it for myself. And I see so much of that playing out. You know, I'm in like some Facebook groups with some other Black men, and just like talking about their relationships with their partners, with their children, and how we have been conditioned and socialized through patriarchy to not be human with each other, right? To not be vulnerable and open with our partners, with our loved ones, particularly when they are women. And so then it's like, you know, that I've been asking some of them, like, what kind of relationship do you want? Do you want this one-sided relationship where, you know, like your partner or child is pouring so much into you and then you're not able to pour back? And I, you know, just the fact that she takes the time in this album to slow things down, to drop the bass, to drop the drums, right? You and I were talking a little bit about like the music behind this album, right? And so much of what makes this acoustic soul, so much of makes this soul music throughout is the bass and the drums, right? Like Black music is heavily carried by bass and drums. And then we get this track, which is, you know, probably 3 instruments, acoustic guitar, piano, and then I want to say it was a cello or a viola. Look, Antola's not, and she thinks it was a cello. So, like, what does that mean to take a pause from kind of like uplifting us as a people, and then just create this moment for herself and for other women, like you were saying, you know, of that age, to have this expression, and for the rest of us to have to like stop and listen to it, you know. Michelle, you were emoting a bit during when we were playing this tune. You know, I'm wondering if there's something that you wanted to chime in on. Thank you so much for being here, by the way. Always appreciate having you around.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've heard the song a gazillion times, and it just, so, and I think even the intros to some of her songs, like the first few beats, first few notes, and I'm already like, these things are moving through and feeling and hitting different. But I just think that there was a way in which in this song and in this moment, when she talked about she'd quickly give up her freedom to be lost in the captivity. And I think that for Black women and loving people means an increased vulnerability. When she talked about, I'm missing the line right now, but like kind of being willing to do the work and hold the pain. And um, and I think I experienced Black women as willing to so freely and so readily do that, and being asked to be met there. And I think also there's an audaciousness. I think that there's so many messages, especially like around this time, about who you need to be to deserve that kind of love. And I think she's saying, like, whether or not somebody is ready to meet me here, I am naming that I want it, that I deserve it, and that I won't water down the way that I say that out loud. I was just about to type in the chat that this song feels kind of just stripped down and raw and bare, and it's just a daring and a brave and a fierce kind of love. And so yeah, it is,
Yeah.
especially I think right now with loving and all of the pain that comes with it. It just
Yeah, I love how you said that too, Michelle. Especially kind of like you're right. She is very willing, right? She's like, yo, like, give me this thing. I'll put it all kind of on the line for it. And at the same time, she knows exactly at this point in her life, like, what is worth it, right? She wants a man who loves music, a man who loves art, who's here with the spirit world and thinks from his heart, right? And like, first of all, again, 10-year-old me hearing that, right? And is like, yeah, okay, that's who I need to grow up to be. So let me try and, get on that track. But also like you said, there's something audacious about saying at the same time, like, I'm willing to give up my freedom for the right thing, not for anything. Like, don't get it twisted, girls. We're not out here just taking whatever kind of situation some brother's going to throw at us. Like, it is the right kind of fit. And like, for young Black women, girls, for young Black boys, for young Black children, regardless of what kind of gender identity that they might hold on to, like, what does that I think creates like a much more healthy kind of like view of what kind of relationship, you should, aspire towards.
I,
William, I also heard that she's asking, are you ready for me?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
I'm here. Are you here too?
Come on.
Equal, not here or not even below per se, but just, are you ready for me as I am?
Mm.
That's, then you
Yep.
really have to be that, because she's just, her word, you got to step up, fellas, if you want to be with her, and I think that's what she was also saying, she's ready, but are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's interesting, maybe a good follow-up. Yes, for sure. Some grown woman stuff. Antola, thank you. That's why we love. Let's play Strength, Wisdom, and Courage.
Whew. Mm.
Listen, baby.
We should have had this. This should have just been a 3-hour long party.
Yeah.
So we could have played each one of these songs in its entirety, like they damn well deserve. Come on.
Look, she's like, I've been too afraid to let it show because I'm scared of judgment, right? Always putting off living for tomorrow. So just following up on what Antola said, like, this is the coming of age out, right? Like this, and it's so, for me, it feels, I remember in that period of my life just feeling like I didn't know and didn't have the answers, and where was the playbook, and yet like a deeper knowing, right? And she called us to that strength, the courage, the wisdom, right? Called us out of our fear, out of our shame, out of our isolation to journey with her. It was such an invitation. I can just remember I have a red Grand Am.
Come on.
Come on now. I would roll the windows down.
Yes. I know that life.
I started with a cassette, but I moved to a CD at this point. And baby, played that to the cover. Rolled off. Strength, wisdom, and courage.
So it's a trip, right? Because again, it's like I was 10, so then like similar to the way that Desiree was telling me like what I had to be, right? You got to be bad, you got to be bold, you got to be wiser. India was like, this stuff though that you need, strength, courage, wisdom, those things, they're already there, even in like little 10-year-old you. So the stuff, it again, like so much of what India encouraged me to do is just be my authentic self, right? And to like break out of constructs of what I had to be, where I, needed who I, whatever. So the courage to kind of like be a Black nerd in, middle and elementary, like, listen, I spoke Elvish at one point in time in my life, folks. There's a couple of dregs still kicking around in the back. All right. So you can imagine the kind of
Listen, you better tell
kind
us
of,
what Elvish is.
so that's for a different podcast.
Okay.
I have to have a whole different situation go on there. But man, like you can imagine, like, that's not really what the Black teen boy is supposed to be into in high school, right? So a lot of shade, got a lot of shade. And then, kind of had music like this to come back to and remind myself, you know what, like, first of all, this is a Black woman who's playing the acoustic guitar. And so I want you to name 2, 3 other Black women playing the acoustic guitar that other people were talking about in 2001. Tracy Chapman had her time in the 90s, but that had largely moved on. And now, again, it was like, who were the Black female icons? It was Destiny's Child. That's, like right? So there was just like so much that India gave us in this work, and I'm excited. If I have the fortune to have sons, to play this music for them as well, and to try and help instill like this Black feminist spin on these values into who they are, at a young age too.
Jenny, tell us about meeting India. Did you see she
What?
dropped a picture? Jenny dropped a photo
What?
of her in India. Come on, sis.
Yeah. Yeah. In 2006, when Borders still had their headquarters, what is that, on Ellsworth or whatever? I had a friend who worked there, and they have musicians coming all the time. And he said, yeah, India.Arie, somebody named India. And I'm like, I gotta be there. I have to be there. And I went, and I think I was probably the only one that was like the most nervous person in the room, because I knew at the end of these sessions that you would get to meet the artist. And like, my picture is so uncertain. I was just like not even ready for this picture, because she was leaning in, okay? She was leaning in. And I wasn't even ready for my smile. I was just like, I can't. So this was, 2006. So that was, 5 years after that album. And I just had to say, like, as someone who started learning to play guitar in 2000 and then started songwriting in 2001, and then like, I had never known that a Black woman could do this. There was no representation for me. And so it almost like, it was like, you can do this. You have permission to do this. Because all the things like Ready for Love, I just sing that a cappella anytime. Because that was something I never knew I could. I listen to lyrics and I'm like, this is what I'm thinking and I'm feeling, and I can actually do this. And it validated my entire, like, everything that I started writing. Like, I mean, I got my guitar out now, but it was such an incredible moment for me to listen to India and just be like, what? So so by 2011, I released an album, but
Do
every
you want
time
to
I hear
play or
her,
sing anything for us today? I'm just saying.
I wish I could. I still have not picked up my guitar. It's been sitting here. I have not picked up my guitar since February of 2020.
Oh,
It has
baby.
been hard.
Okay.
So this is a big step. Is
When you're
having her
ready,
out here.
when you're ready, we got you. You take
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
We got you.
I'm excited. She's tuned and everything. But India, that was probably my biggest, to see someone that sounded like, that said those things,
Come on.
that sounded that way. That was huge. That was everything for me.
So Jenny, I'm not gonna lie. I was talking to Yodi. We were talking about this before, and I was specifically hoping that you were going to be here again today. Like you had kind of promised me an email that you would. So I appreciate you coming through. Promises, another India track, another one that was on my list of my favorites. And we are coming up on the time that we, had told y'all that we would keep.
There is no time. We run this.
So,
Play the song.
Yeah,
We
okay,
are. This is our thing.
But I want, before I play my song, because Jenny just came up off mute and shared all of that with us. Jenny, I gotta ask, like, what is one of your Like, what is one of the tracks on here that just like struck a chord with you immediately? I mean, you shared about Ready for Love, but what's another one that like, you know?
Yeah. So Ready for Love was like the first time I'd ever heard anything by India.Arie. I don't know if I was watching MTV. I don't know if but anyway, but that was one. Now the second song that I always listen to like at least twice a week, and I didn't even know it wasn't recent, was Video. That's the one. For some reason it's so current, it's so fresh to me, and I've only started listening to it for the last couple of years. I thought it was recent. I really did. So that's the one I listen to all the time. All the time.
Oh
Everything
my
on
goodness.
my face is where it's supposed to be.
Anna, come on. Oh, talk about timeless, which is kind of sad that we live in a society in which this song has to be timeless, but it is, and thankfully we have it, right? You know, like thankfully she has given us this gift that we can play, you know, until we don't need to any longer. But woof, that track gets me. I mean, it's just even the chords at the you just hear it at the beginning, right? You were saying that, Michelle, that it's just all it takes is like, oh, I have to listen to a measure of this music, and all of a sudden yep, it's right at the heart. And I also have a very deep relationship with this song. You know, like I'm a little bit of a hippie. Um, and there was a there was a time in my life where I only wore pants with drawstrings, you know. And so, like you said, Jenny, right, which is um, I didn't I knew that that's who I was, right? I was a country boy growing, like I wanted to live in the mountains in Virginia for since the day I was born. You know, my family will put that is who I am. And did not see us kind of like represented in having these kind of like authentic relationships with nature and the world around us, right? It was always kind of like I don't know, and obviously I do, like this is all construct, right, of the dominant culture, but to kind of like alienate Black people from the natural world and the spiritual world in the United States, right? And yet every time that there's like some kind of, you know, mention of Africa, it's all Black people in like natural settings. Like they only live in huts out on the Serengeti in Africa, but all the Black people in the United States all live in the hood in cities, and nobody had like, and just this like what is happening there. And India kind of opened that back up, right, and is like, look, all of this dominant culture bullshit is not who we have to, let's say, first of all, it's not who we are, and it is not who we have to be. And I'm just gonna take the time, the second track, the first musical track on my debut album, to make that what I say.
I was telling you when we were pre-gaming yesterday, I had a conversation with my son who's square in the middle of tweendom and likes to tell me I'm not cool. So yesterday I had to break it down and let him know that my generation invented hip hop and hip hop culture and everything he partakes in, TikTok and what all this Minecraft and Fortnite and all of that stuff that came from us, bro. And the conversation evolved into and I remember doing this with my mom too, but like, what's cool, right? And so he says at some point in the conversation, in addition to me not being cool, that he's not cool. And I feel this little heart pang, right? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I think he's so cool. What are you talking about? And he's like, nah, I'm not cool. And I was like, well, what's cool? Like, do you mean this or that? Or who do you think of? And he named a couple people. And then right when I like my heart is sinking, he says, and you just made me think about this, but I'm all right with that. Like, I'm good with who I am. And I was like, dude, if I had known what you know at 11, right? If I had known that being a blurred or being a whatever, like, right, that loving music or art or what, like, or being not fitting neatly into this monolithic definition of what it means to be Black. Like, if I had known that at 10, baby, and I think that's so important. And so often we look at what little progress we've made, but that felt like huge progress, that from one generation to the next in my family, that we are, my son has is defining, like cool for himself, and he is okay with that. And that was beautiful. That's India and, you know, every other person who had the audacity to claim something that was true for them reverberating.
Mm. I mean, like the thing that, um, yeah, the thing that I want to tell Tyson in that is like, dude, you're so cool because you're authentically you. Like that's the thing. That's the thing that all of us are actually like just kind of like gravitating towards, is the people that were like, oh, this is who you like, you are, who you want to be. And India gives us that invitation right off the like off the rip. It's, well, actually off the rip. What does it mean for a person to start an album in 2001 with an ancestor invocation? What does that mean
You better say it.
in 2001 to open up an album with an ancestral invocation? And then to, like you said, she's like, oh, you're 11 tracks in? Great. Let me bring you on back for a longer list of Black folks that you need to thank for this moment right here.
Listen.
And I mean, if you're listening, like, there are.
For her debut album, right? For her debut album, that's how you hit the set, right?
And there, like, there are unspoken, unseen levels of musical goodness. There's a hierarchy that each of us kind of has of like what's really good music, what's tolerable, right? And then like, it's trash. And I would fight somebody. I would get into a fist fight with someone if India was not at God tier. If this album is not up on musically what is like, you can't listen to this and just be like, oh, this is pedantic and so like whatever, aloof. No, like this is some work. So to just even like boom, she's setting us up for something that's different, right? And then the first thing that she's like gives us is this gift, like you said, of how many, like there's been so much two steps, a step forward, two steps back in our lifetime, even in the past weeks, right, where we're just like experiencing this continuously, and yet here she is offering that like gift, right, at the front, that really is, like you were saying, like what our ancestors are dreaming for is for each of us to have the opportunity to be our whole authentic selves in this space that we occupy, this country that we're living in. And
I posted earlier this week, this abolitionist Derica, who reminded us that yes, it is true that police came from slave patrols, right? It is also true that police came from our freedom, right? So that comes, come on now.
wow.
Come on. Let me
Wow.
Right? It's deep. It's deep. My friend, it was such a lifeline in the middle of the week, y'all. So much so I want to share exactly what she said. But
Hmm.
whew, um Here we go. Derica Purcell is her name. She reminded everyone that yes, police came from slave patrols, and yes, this brutality is age old, but also the history of police didn't start with police, it started with freedom. Settler colonialism and racial capitalists had to create this apparatus to kidnap and kill free people. But from the beginning, this has also been a story of freedom, of resistance, of rebellion, and irrepressible uprisings, because why else would this apparatus need to be created?
Mm.
The story begins with freedom, reminds me, Yodit, of what you said, that our stories do not begin with pain. And I know in my bones it will not end with pain. It will end in freedom and the horizons we are pushing towards. And to me, India is pushing us towards those horizons, right? She's pushing us towards that. And she continues to do it for 20 years, right? Voyage to India. I mean, come on. You said it when we were pre-gaming, like we could do 3 episodes just on India, right? Just on her body of work. It's a love language to the culture. It's a love letter, a series of love letters.
I mean, we ended up the other day, we played a track of hers in Champions for Change, you know, just wrapping up the celebration, right? Like the music lives on and it continues to open and push forward, even 20 years, like this album. So much of what we've been talking about and how we get to that space of freedom is co-liberation, right? And help like humans acknowledging and seeing the humanity in each other and recognizing that our fates are tied together, that we have to get there together. Her track, what is it? Track 11.
Come on, play it. Just play it.
Like that is what we are moving towards, right? That is, and I said before, you know, it feels like this album for 10-year-old me was a roadmap of virtues, of, you know, like this was like the whole album. She is just letting me know, like, hey, this is who you should grow up to be. This is it right here, right? Acknowledge the humanity in others. Treat people, you know, love people for the skin that they're in. Accept people for the wholeness of their humanity. Offer deep, human, real, you know, give and take love. Like all of this, it's just again and again and again. So how, yeah, you know, like 20 years ago, just laying it out, that this is where we need to go and this is where we need to be. It's just.
That feels to me, you know, I posted it as a message of solidarity today because I was thinking about Black and brown bodied folks. And like, I wonder if you know the God I see in you. You know, I wonder when they try to snatch our dreams, do you know that that is because we are the descendants, right? Not in a colonialized way, in a way where I know in my loins that I am connected genetically to the birthers of this civilization. I know that there's a reason India can call this up out of the annals of her being, because she too is an ancestor of the mother of civilization, right? I know that when we talk about how Black women love, right, and brown women love, that it is as our birthright, right? I know that. I know she knows that. I feel that. You know, the way that you can simultaneously be holding, as she shares with us, deep, you know, personal work and growth, and also be breathing life into the culture, right? Like holding both of those. You hear me use that metaphor of birthing a lot, right? And I remember many moons ago watching Shirley MacLaine on Oprah and her talking about us shifting into this feminine celestial. And I didn't even really know what that meant, but somehow the way it touched me, I knew that sort of my superpowers were being activated. And it was probably around this time, but it was like the balance, the energetic balance that we need. When we talk about a system of white supremacy and paternalism and patriarchy, we're really describing a universal imbalance,
Mm.
not a purely white as we understand it, right? We're not talking about, like, this transcends that. It's transcendent, right? And this Black woman who becomes our cultural icon is is singing that to us, is plucking it. The 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 strings in those songs are like pulling at our heart strings and our soul strings, and the drum beat is calling us to our lineage, and she knows it.
Which is, you know, I don't know. Again, it's hard for me to not get swept up in like the spirituality of this all, right? Because again, like again, she is prophetic. Back, she has a song on here about how we're out of balance. It's called Back to the Middle. What? You know what I'm saying? It's like everything, the whole experience of like of what we're going through, not only like as people, but like you said, almost on this human, you know, like the evolution of humanity kind of level, right? Like where we're at, and recognizing all of these different areas that we kind of need to come back to and address and reground ourselves and our humanity in, right? And that and back to the middle, just kind of bringing us away from like, you know, the extremes, and at the same time again being kind of like unflinching in what, like, you know, don't abandon your values, right? But just come back to the middle of your perception, come back to like, don't necessarily be operating at such a, you know, a high emotional level that you can't kind of see things from different angles and from different perspectives. You know, don't let go of the things that you need to do, the people that you need to protect and save, but just come, you know, come back to the middle just a little bit. um all right, there is there's one more song that I just want to talk about just briefly. um and I'm sure that Jenny and Antola will have some thoughts about this song too. Is Always in My Head, you know, and like she, so much of what I experienced in the last year, so much of the trauma, the pain, right? It just kept telling me like, come back to the ancestors, come back to Baldwin, talk to your parents, listen to the music, right? Just like seek out the culture, just steep yourself into it, and get in connected with those communities wherever you can. Um, and thinking about like all the people and the ways in which that they kind of shaped me. I mean, you know, I am now, I'm making a prediction that at some point over this podcast, we'll end up talking about another artist who has impacted the trajectory of my life or, you know, like the values that I was supposed to hold dear. Right. And just thinking about like the ways in which those lessons, those memories are both like, it's in my head all the time. But something that Michelle said earlier just kind of reminded me, like, you know, it's not just our ancestors' spirits, like, it's their bodies too. Like, we carry their DNA, their cells, their mitochondria, right? Like, all of this, they are, so it's not something that I have to just like extrapolate on kind of like this weird hippie level of, oh yeah, you know, like my ancestors are with me. Not like, they are physically a part of me. They are physically that DNA, that strength, courage, and wisdom. Like you said, yo, the police had to be invented because our ancestors had so much of that in them that they broke the system in a way that they could not handle, right? We liberated ourselves.
Say that.
We liberated ourselves, and then they had to invent other ways.
Come on.
So all of that is still in us.
Say it, baby. Say it.
And yeah, you know, just kind of like this reminder that not
Get
only,
out your head for 1 second and feel
on.
that in your body. Just feel that in your body for a moment.
it's like a hum. It's like a vibration right across my chest from, like, you know, it's centered in my heart, but the hum, and like that's the vibe, right? It really is that vibration kind of like moving through us. And you know, I just appreciate India so much for, like you said, Jenny, kind of reminding, you know, like Black girls that, yeah, you can pick up a guitar, but also that there's an entire like legacy. All of the music that Americans love, we created.
Come on now.
Right? And again, like she brings it back to us. She brings it in the music, like in the song, in the sounds. She's putting acoustic guitar on top of strings, on top of funky bass riffs and hip hop drum beats. There are like, it's, I think video is almost all bass drum. Doom, 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 right? Like all of that. That's us, you know, and just that, again, that homage, the celebration of that legacy, in creating this moment, in creating this album, which again is on that musical kind of god tier level, and then to Jenny's point, like what that catalyzed for other Black art, like for other Black female artists, right? I mean, even Jenny Jones and Danny Darling, you know, here in our town, right, are two of the bigger names. And where is that music oriented, right? In acoustic guitar. So I cannot, as a musician and an audiophile, like listen to this without an immense amount of gratitude for, you know, India bringing all of that forth, right? Like tying the past into the present, because she was like, you know, like the present of that album, and then catalyzing it forward because the music lives on 20 years later.
I think you should play a little bit of that. I'm just saying, and then we'll wind down. But I'm not ready to go yet.
You were my shelter in the pouring rain. You were the joy even before the pain, or my comfort even before the pain. That's what it is. Woof. You know, just kind of the same way that she wrote Wonderful about Stevie, and I'm kind of like, this song could be about you. Like, India, if you ever listen to this podcast, you are in my head. I cannot imagine my musical life without you wrapped up into it. You are a part of this song just as much as every other artist that you channeled on through it. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wow. I know, Michelle, me and you might have to jump on after and play the afternoon. Look, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Oh God.
I do want to share, I want to share a piece real quick, Will. We want to ask 3 things of you, if we can, y'all. One is, please share the podcast. And Michelle, thank you yesterday for using your platform to do that. We're so grateful. You know, we're experimenting and learning our way through, but we would love to fill the Zoom room and have listeners from all over the country. So if you loved it, please share. You can always support We're pretty lean operation right now, but you can always support financially by hitting up Will's Venmo. I'll put that in the chat. And we use that to expand and grow our platform. We always want to remind you to support Black entrepreneurs, makers, and organizers. And I was thinking a little bit about soul food,
Ooh.
like how India is soul food, and also in Ypsilanti, where we're based, there's the 24th Cheesecakery of Ypsilanti.
I was walking past there at 11 o'clock this morning, hoping that they were open.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way. There's also a soul food restaurant, Cuppy's.
Cuppy's Best Soul Food Cafe. Come on.
Yep, you can still pick that up there in Ipsy. And I'm also thinking about Mo Peas on Southside. They got some of the best fried chicken I've had.
That cobbler too, they hooked it up.
Oh, the cobbler is delicious. So remember, and what's the Guatemalan spot on Encuentro?
Encuentro Latino, folks. If you don't get your ass in there,
yep.
Get your churrasquitos.
We had Umi Sushi to support Asian entrepreneurs this week. Also want to suggest that. And we have an amazing community of both East Asian and Asian Pacific Islander restaurants and owners. So please be thinking about supporting them financially is one way when our hearts are broken and we don't know how else to show up.
I think too, like, let's not discount what it means for folks, for us to show up, come into their space, right? And remind them, like, hey, we value y'all being here.
That's right.
It's
also a disruption of this notion that there isn't solidarity already in our communities, right? We've been rocking in these cross-cultural communities for a really long time. Yeah. So in the spirit of food, I got a little piece I want to share with you. Okay. And I'll dedicate this to all of you because in some ways you have been this. It is unnamed, but it came to my heart yesterday. Sometimes I can see something so clearly, but I can't tell you what it is, only how it feels. So I whisper it to you, so only you can hear, but not the naysayers. And the way you look back at me says you feel it too, inside your own vision. And your vision is so much more than I could see alone. So we sit holding our visions, sharing our secrets, whispering. And then we rise to run, chasing liberation and love, longing for the kind of soul food our bellies have hungered for and only tasted a time or two in morsels, not meals. So we throw in a little of this and a little of that. Sometimes it's a teaspoon, sometimes it's a pinch from our palms, sometimes it's a big old bushel of goodness. And suddenly our pot and plates are so full that it takes 2 hands, 4 hands, 6 hands to hold them and many mouths to eat the abundant, rich textures and taste, steaming from a cauldron burned and pressed into metal that can withstand the heat. We long to share this soul food with others, to fill their bellies too. It's that kind of food you taste way after the meal is over. You wake up smelling it. It's pouring from your pores. It's familiar and yet so foreign. And as you smell it, you remember it is your grandmother's recipe, the one she planted in you when you were 2, the one she whispered into your apron-clad body and your flower-covered cheeks. You're whispering it now to your kinfolk, the youngins, and all who will listen. You remember what she told you. This food will change the world, my sweet. You will change the world, my beloved. Do it well. do it with others. Do it now.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, yo. So much. Your imagery was on point. I could feel the cauldrons bubbling and boiling. Oh man.
Yeah.
Whether it's a pinch from your palm or a big old bushel of goodness. Yeah. Morsels, not meals, man. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, even when they try to kill us.
Come on.
We may bend, but we do not break.
Come on. Folks, before we let you go, we always we have a couple of invitations or I don't know what else to call them, but that we think this revolutionary music kind of calls us back to, right? That these are some of our takeaways. So, yo, what were some of your invitations that India's music offered?
You know, I gotta shout out Michelle again. It's like giving yourself permission to bloom is one of my invitations or demands of us, that we give ourselves space to bloom. I think the other thing is letting music be a source for healing and just allowing us to take it where we need to go in that moment.
Yeah, that it's
Right.
always in our head, right? It's always in our head.
Yeah.
Yeah, my invitations, I think that I've been realizing more and more that I think when we're growing up, men help teach us how to be men. And I think that goes across the board, even if you're, regardless of kind of like your gender, like men teach us how to be men, but women teach us how to be human, the whole people.
Mm-hmm.
This album is always a reminder to embrace my whole humanity. And to just really be in all of it, and to also embrace our ancestries and legacies, right? This again, like this opens with an invocation. So connect back, like it's a reminder to me that I'm never, even when I'm like feeling overwhelmed and just like the world is way too much, that there's so much to lean on and so many people to call forth, and just remember all of the things that they persevered through is a reminder that I can persevere as well. But not only to do that, but it's a reminder that because they did that it's my responsibility now to take up India's first lesson again and embrace my whole humanity and like really be who I'm supposed to be here. So
yeah,
I invite you all to do the same. Folks, the next episode of Black Dandelion with Will and Yo D is going to be taking place on Sunday, May 9th. We have not yet decided what we're going to... Oh, wait, we did decide earlier. We're going to be talking about songs, love songs to
it's
women.
Mother's Day weekend. Isn't that Mother's Day weekend too?
I
think that might be
that's Mother's Day. So, okay. It's definitely got to be. That's what it is.
I need Teddy. I need George Benson. I need all the brothers singing to me on Mother's Day. You hear me? You better bring it. And we, mama on this thread, this is your soundtrack. This is your playlist. You and Uncle John better come with it.
Hey, we're gonna bring it. We got it.
All
Uncle
right.
John and I, we'll make this happen.
You just put him in heaven.
Come on, Uncle John. And you know what? That's how we're going to bill it, okay? Every now and again, this is just coming up in the moment, but you're reminding me that in the 2000s, just before I got married, I would host every Mother's Day a brunch in my backyard, and the brothers would cook for us, and the mamas would come and eat.
Now.
Come on now. And we would play music and play cards, and we would enjoy the day, and it was our day of rest. So if y'all are able, come on, host this
Okay.
Mother's Day for us. Okay.
Okay, well, we
We're
got
gonna do
work.
it.
We
You
got
got
work.
your order? All right. All right. We'll see you on Mother's Day.
I just want to say one thing.
Please.
I don't remember homework being this much fun. You guys give us.
Uncle John, I knew
love
when I
your
met you, I
homework
knew that I
assignment.
loved you. I knew that I loved you then. I knew it from day one. Yes.
This
All
is
right.
fun. This is fun. And I just one quick thing is because I'm more of a musician than I was a singer or anything. I always listen to the music, you know, the ins and outs, like you were talking about the cello and what have you. But since I've been on your podcast, I've been listening more to a vocalist and words. And, you know, not that I didn't before, but it was usually for me, the words were in the background. Now I can put them all together just, you know, to really listen, because you know me, William, I'm a instrumentalist from way back, you know, and anything I would pick out every instrument. Now I listen to the words because of your podcast. I'm loving this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, you got my wheels turned. How are we gonna get your music in here too?
We'll figure it out. We'll
Okay.
figure it out,
Okay.
and we'll play with Jenny. You know, we'll figure
Yes.
out something.
Woo! I love it.
Yeah, and Will.
Did that just happen?
Yep.
Yes, it did.
I love it. Oh
That
my
was
gosh.
good.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Okay.
His wheels are turning already.
Yes.
All right, we gotta go.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Hey,
right.
love y'all.
Love
Thank you so
y'all.
All
much.
right. Have a great week,
Well,
everybody.
Well,
Good to see
care.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.